Thank you so much for joining Dental Marketing Theory, a podcast by Gary Bird. In today's episode, Gary talks with co-founder and CEO of NexHealth, Alamin Uddin. Gary and Al chat about his entrepreneurial journey and his approach to technology in the dental industry. As always, please make sure to like, subscribe, share, and leave a comment, as all of those things really help to get the word out about dental marketing theory. Hope you enjoyed today's show.
All right, we are live. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm excited about today's episode, but if you have a moment, and I know you do because you're listening to this, please subscribe to this podcast, whether it's on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, whatever it may be, whatever you're listening on. If you just subscribe really quick, it really helps us out, and it's totally free. So don't make me beg. Just go do it. I know you're not doing it, so go do it right now, and then we'll jump to the show. So I'm really, really excited today because I get the opportunity to interview awesome people. But today I have a specific guest that is more on the tech side of the dental industry, and his name's Al. He's the CEO of NexHealth, and I want to share with you, Al, what, from my perception of working with you guys and what I see you guys doing in the space. And I would love for you to tell me what I got right, what I got wrong, and what I left out. But your company just recently raised a lot of money. And the reason that you raised a lot of money is because you're building out solutions to help offices connect to their patients, or really patients connect with their offices much easier. Because as we all know, it's not easy to get a doctor's appointment. I actually hurt my knee, and I called a sports therapist, and they were like, oh, you got to go to your doctor. I called my doctor. They said, no, we can't get you in. I said, can I just do a video thing? My knee hurts. And it was just very, very painful, right? It was not, the process was horrible. I'm still waiting for answers back. And I think you guys have helped solve some of that. And so what did I get right? What did I get wrong? And what did I leave out?
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Gary. Super excited to have this conversation. I think you got all of it right here, but maybe 50% of the picture right. And the way that I look at what we're building at NexHealth and what we're really in the long run, right? If you look at our like some of our career pages and the way that we pitch ourselves in Silicon Valley, we're a San Francisco-based company. Our mission statement is to accelerate innovation in healthcare and dentistry. And what that means for us is really two things. One is, we want to build the products and tools that will help dentists and doctors digitize their practices directly. So, for example, we go to a dental office, we're able to, read and write into any sort of dental system that they might have, right? Meaning, Dentrix, EagleSoft, Open Dental. And when I say read and write into, what I mean is synchronize the data every 30 seconds, both, into Dentrix or EagleSoft or any of the systems you may be using, and then, outbound as well to NexHealth, right? And then, we have
real quickly before we do the other side of that, just so you say that, right? And you brush over it. And I understand that because we've gone through it and we've had to work through that. What does that mean? Like, why is that important to the dental space?
Yeah, the reason that's important is really two reasons, right? One is if you're going to have a seamless automated patient experience, right? Seamless and automated patient experience means there shouldn't be an actual human that has to check things, email the patient, call the patient, text the patient, do the things that needs to be done for error proofing, all those things, right? So the fact that, we can automatically push data into any dental system and then pull data out as well, right? That means, when we do digitize the patient experience, from a patient finding the dentist on Google to scheduling an appointment, filling out their patient paperwork, coming into the office, paying the office, all taken care of through us. And it's all automated completely. No need for a receptionist, no need for an office staff to do anything, right? And the second thing is, just no data entry from the office side, right? I mean, especially, these days with staff shortage, the fact that, we can automate new patient paperwork that usually takes about 10 to 15 minutes per new patient, right? The fact that, we can automate an entire appointment booking process where the, patient can go online and choose the type of appointment they want. Let's say like Invisalign, and they can choose, 2 p.m. They can choose with the hygienist in a specific chair. The fact that we can automate all of this, right, means, we save the office staff tons of hours. One. And second is, it's just a good experience for the office staff. They don't have to do data entry. So the reason, we focus so much on our ability to seamlessly push and pull data into Dentrix, EagleSoft, and any of these systems is that, which is it's a good patient experience because it's completely automated, no need for any human input.
Yeah.
And it's also great experience for the office staff because they get to save hours per day. And also, no data entry, no manual work
Yeah.
needed on their side. Yeah.
Yeah. And just to kind of flip this in a different way. So
Mm-hmm.
if I'm at the office and I'm filling out a form,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, there's a delay to get that into the system and get
Mm-hmm.
it back to everybody else, and it may be wrong when it's entered, right? So
Yep.
there's a lot of broken parts that can happen in there. So you're removing those opportunities for those broken parts, and you're
Mm-hmm.
speeding up that process, which is a lot of times we don't think about it, right? Because we don't
Mm-hmm.
feel it, but the patient does feel it, and
Yep.
there is labor cost tied to it, whether we see it
Mm-hmm.
or not. There's definitely labor cost tied to it. So that's
Yep.
the one part, but you were leading into a second part that you wanted to touch on.
Yeah. The second part, which I think is probably even more interesting, which is that technology that we built that can push and pull data into any of the systems, right? We turn that into an API, or a product basically that's available to other tech companies out there, other dental tech companies out there. So think about Swell, think about Quip, think about Smile Direct Club, think about TrueLark. Many of these dental tech companies that some of the audience here are already using or familiar with, right? Uh, their product is also powered by the synchronizer that we built that can push and pull data into these systems, right? So what that really means is that if you're, for example, Swell, right, which is a reviews product, it's a great product,
Yeah.
and they do a phenomenal job with reviews, right? We on the back end we take care of all the data synchronization needs for them with their customers, right? So they go, their team goes and signs up a dental office, let's say, right, and that dental office, in order to send out review prompts to their patients. Swell needs to know, in EagleSoft or Dentrix, Open Dental, whatever system that they may be using, Swell needs to know, like, hey, when is this patient's appointment? When are they coming in? Did they walk out of the office yet? And if they did, do you want us to, send out a review request, right? The process of knowing, when the appointment is, when did the patient walk out? That's all in, whatever dental practice manager system is being used, right? And we're able to basically get that information for Swell, send it to Swell, and automate the whole process, right? So for Swell, what that means is, they got to just focus on what their core product is, which is, review management. And then we take care of all the sort of back end complexity that comes with, pushing and pulling data, right? And, we get to save Swell, let's say, like 5 to 10 engineers per month,
That's huge.
right? And they pay us very little as well, per practice. So what that really means is that by enabling other tech companies to build their products cheaply and more quickly, we get to just accelerate the pace at which technology gets to be developed in the dental industry, right? So it's fascinating if you think about it this way, right? We have a team, we have a sales team. We go out there and we sell to like DSOs and dentists. We implement the product and we fully digitize their entire patient experience, where patients have a seamless experience. Office staff gets to save a ton of time. And then on the other hand, we turn around and make that same technology that we developed in house to other tech companies, and then those tech companies go out there and gets to build their products more quickly, and then serve those same patients, those same office managers, right? So overall, like the way that we look at ourselves is, we're doing the work, the core necessary work needed to both modernize the dental space directly, but then also enable these other companies to build their products faster, so that the pace of innovation in the space is just so much quicker. Does that make
Got it.
sense?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
totally. So it's because here's the problem that I see in dental
Mm-hmm.
right now, and then again,
Mm-hmm.
this is just from my perspective, which is a very small piece of the
Yep.
pie. Is like,
Yep.
so we build this app, we can track all of this marketing data. That's great, right? But then
Mm-hmm.
there's like 400 other dashboards that you need to run your dental practice, right? So you need recare, you need financial, and each of those have multiple parts within them, right?
Yep.
Then you have all the business management side of things. So by the time you're done, you have
Mm-hmm.
dozens of dashboards that people need to log into. And so somehow those have to come together. So do you
Mm-hmm.
see what you guys are doing? Do you see that starting to piece together in certain parts?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think, ultimately the way that we look at our company is that we're basically an integrations company. Most of our engineering bandwidth, and most of the money that we raised was actually to go out and hire more engineers. But most of the effort that we do, goes into the integrations that we do, right? Which and part of the way that to really look at it is that we're just connecting different systems, right? We're connecting, um, like let's say Open Dental to Swell, and then like Dentrix to our own SaaS product, so on
Mm-hmm.
and so forth, right? So eventually, we do see ourselves becoming a company where we're just moving data from point A to point B, and connecting all these disparate systems, so that for someone like when you're building this unified dashboard, it turns into a couple of clicks instead of months and months of just
Yeah.
development work. Yeah.
Yeah. Where do you what do you think so dental's been slow, right, on the technology side?
Mhm.
What do you think the reasons that has happened? Why is dental a little bit behind on the curve of being able to make things like this work?
Yeah, I think fundamentally, it's it's the lack of ability for the people that make the products, engineers, right? Um, it's the lack of ability for them to build products quickly. I'll give you an example, right? If I'm an entrepreneur, or if I'm a founder or an engineer, and I want to start my own company in the dental space, right? And in order for my product to work, I need to figure out a way to integrate, people's dental records, or the doctors, patient records that they have at the office with my product, right? If you go and ask an average, Silicon Valley engineer today, right, where majority of the innovation happens, hey, how do you, integrate people's health records or people's dental records with your product? For them, the answer is I don't know. Like no one knows. Like literally, no one in Silicon Valley. Like I'm in our San Francisco office today. If I grab one of the engineers across the street and ask him like, hey, how do you, integrate people's health records into like a technical product? For them, the answer is I don't know. But anything else in the world, right? Like how do you, for example, integrate text messaging? How do you, integrate um,
Health, what about like other health records? So like what if it was like radiology or something like that?
Yeah, it's the same problem, just overall in the healthcare industry, actually.
Yeah.
But my point is like like these sorts of questions, they're already answered in other industries.
Mm,
Like in any other industry you look at, finance, right? Like, hey, how do I integrate someone's bank account
mm,
with my
yeah.
product? All these tools and all these answers already exist. But on the other hand, in the healthcare space and the dental space, those answers don't exist yet. Which means for any entrepreneur, or any engineer, or really anyone to like build any sort of product in our space, it's usually fairly confusing. It's not easy. It's slow. They don't know how to get started and all those things, right? Which means overall you just have a lack of innovation in the space. And if engineers and entrepreneurs can't build products, that means doctors don't have access to the modern tools that every other industry has in the world, which then
Yeah.
translates into you and me as a patient also not having access to the tools that we need to like manage our dental care or manage our healthcare, right? So that's
Yeah.
really it, right? Like there hasn't been a company yet until NexHealth that sort of came in and said, hey, we're going to build products, and we're going to figure out a way to get other startups, other tech companies like Swell and Quip and Smile Direct Club, right? We're going to make it really, really seamless and easy for them to integrate patient records and people's health records with their products, so they can go in and build their products more quickly and serve the market. A really good comparison is really the finance space, right? Like you sign up for Venmo today, or you sign up for PayPal today, right? It's so seamless and so easy
Yeah.
for you to connect your bank account, right?
Hmm.
You can't really do that for your health records. That X-ray that I have that I took
Is that
2 weeks
because of
ago.
HIPAA?
Mhm.
Is that a feature or a bug?
It's definitely a bug, and it's not because of HIPAA. HIPAA honestly has nothing to do with this. I mean, the finance space has even more rigid regulations,
Yeah.
right? It's people's
Yep.
money, right? If you can do this in the finance space, why can't you do this in the health tech space, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Is it a unit? Is it because we don't? Is it because everything's so segmented in the dental space from like a PMS standpoint? Like everybody kind of does it differently, or does it even within? I've seen within DSOs,
Hmm.
every office manages their
Hmm.
software differently, right? They use it differently.
Hmm.
So then when you try to pull reports, you don't have consistency because Susan in
Hmm.
Office A is doing it different than Bobby at Office B.
Yeah. I mean, the fundamental problem is that you have 20 to 30 different dental software systems out there that stores patient records, right? One office is using, let's say, Dentrix, another one is using Dolphin, another one is using like OrthoTrack or EagleSoft, Open Dental, whatever it is, right? And usually they're on-prem, meaning they're locally hosted on a server, not cloud-based, right? Which makes it
Yeah.
even more complicated.
Yeah.
And on top of that, these systems are, most of them at least, are fairly old. They were built in the early 2000s. most of them were built in the 90s.
Yeah.
And they all have, it's not that the offices are using them differently. That's totally fine. But they all have different ways of also storing the data. So like on the
Mm.
database, right? How that data is formatted, how it's stored, and all those things, right? It's also done differently based on what system you're using, what version you're using, all those things, right?
Mm.
And the process of unifying those systems, right? Like reading, pulling, and pushing data into them. Between, for example, we have a customer called Dental Care Alliance. It's a DSO, and in their ortho side, they use 11 different systems between 54 offices, and those
Wow.
11 different systems each have really different ways of storing data. So anyways, the work and the process of being able to uh, push and pull, read and write data between all these different systems, locally hosted on-prem, and then cleaning and also just unifying the way that all that data is stored, right? It's really complex work. It takes a lot of time, and it takes really good engineering work to even do that. We've been around for about 5 years now, and we feel like we're finally at a point where we have a really, really good system and a really, really good way of doing it. So it just takes a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort, which is another reason we raised so much money as well. Yeah. It's not
Got
that
it.
it's impossible. It's hard
It's
and
hard.
time
Yeah.
consuming. Yeah.
So if you were a dentist or you
Mm-hmm.
were running a DSO right now,
Mm-hmm.
and you
Mm-hmm.
were starting from scratch, like you had no
Mm-hmm.
offices, you're starting a de novo, you really want to grow, you want to
Mm-hmm.
grow to 100 practices.
Mm-hmm.
What PMS would you use right now?
We partner with a lot of them, so um,
Or
well,
give me some pros. Give me some pros on different, because I know some of them are better than others in certain areas, right? So just you
yeah,
don't have to focus on the negative. Just give me some pros
yeah,
about certain platforms.
yeah. No, so here's what I would say. I think all of them have positives and negatives, and there's a reason customers use them to begin with, right? Because there are some good things, some bad things.
Yeah.
Uh, Generally speaking, though, what I would probably recommend is to always go with the cloud-based system. In 2022, and the reason you want to go with the cloud-based system is that what it really does is that it frees up your office, your time, and some of your IT budget. Uh, Generally speaking, and makes everything less complex as well. If it's a modern cloud-based system,
So
your
like who
ability to
has
just manage your
who has modern cloud-based systems? Do you know off the top of your head? Or, I know a couple, but I've
yeah,
had
I was
a couple
I
of them
was
are
just
really
I was just
painful.
thinking. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was just thinking, they're actually even the what I would call the modern ones are not really modern. I would say maybe Ascend is
Ascend.
probably the one that gets, yeah, Dentrix Ascend, primarily because that was built in 2012. Everything else like Denicon, Curve,
Yeah.
they were all built in the early 2000s in like different frameworks and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But Dentrix Ascend, from what I can tell so far, has and we support them. We integrate data into them. We read and write into them. I think we're the only company in the
Yeah, I
world
think
right
you're.
now
Yeah,
actually
because
that does
I know
this. Um,
most people can't get into
mhm,
Dentrix Ascend for
mhm.
from what I've experienced from an
Yeah,
integration standpoint.
yep, exactly. Yeah, and
Awesome.
and, and we do. And yeah. Anyways, yeah. So that would be the one I would say.
Okay, cool. And then do you
Yep.
let's walk through like funding. So why
Mhm,
does a company like yours need to raise, first of all, how much money did you raise, and then why did you need to raise that much money in the dental space to do
mhm.
to fulfill your vision?
Yeah, I mean, in total, we raised over $170 million as a company so far. And the reason we needed to raise so much money is really what I was talking about earlier, right? The type of work that we do, which is integrating with all these different systems, with all sorts of data format. One and second is also, our ability to push and pull data every 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So how good the integration is, and how complex it is, and then also being able to then scale all of it to now close to 70 million patient records, just requires a lot of engineering talent. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't mean some like programmer out there in like, I don't know, like India or something, right? I mean like real Silicon Valley talent. Like for example,
Yeah,
our
complicated. It's a
engineering.
complicated problem.
Yeah, yeah. Like our engineering team comes from like former Tesla and whatnot, right? And those engineers are also like very expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we need a large team. We need a really really good team, and we need a lot of senior engineers as well. And they're expensive, and we just needed to raise the money to invest into the product and keep scaling it. Yeah.
That's awesome. So what's your vision?
Mhm.
Like, where do you see the company going over the next 5 to 10 years?
5 to 10 years from now, hopefully we're at a point, where we have thousands of different types of software products powered by us, right? So think about Swell, Quip, TrueLark. Some companies you might not even heard of because they're startups and they're just starting out, right? One, so the existing ecosystem that we have out there, somehow working with us, and we get to make their lives and their engineers' lives easier, when it comes to building their products. And then of course, the DSOs, the dental offices, the independent ones, especially, our ability to go and work with them, digitize their offices, streamline their operations, save them a lot of money, save them a lot of staff hours, and also, give their patients a good experience, right? Yeah, so we're hoping, we have a majority market share when it comes to both sides of it. That's one, and the second one, I think, that's going to be even more exciting for us is really two things. So one is, um, we want to be able to make it really, really easy for tech companies, entrepreneurs, founders to start companies in the dental space, right? So if you have an idea, right, and you want to go build that idea, we want to have the funding for you. We want to make the incorporation process easy for you, and we want to give you the technology that we have to make it
Mm.
easy for you to build your product, right? And then take that same concept and then apply it to dental offices as well, right? So if you're just graduating from dental school, we also want to make it really, really easy and simple for you to start your own practice. So that could include funding, that could include like taking care of all of your like
Oh, cool.
legal work, that could include even finding office space for you. So yeah, I mean, do we in 5 to 10 years from now, do we not only hope to have majority market share, when it comes to the existing dental space, and then the existing tech companies out there that are working with us, but also we want to make the process of starting new offices, we want to start the process of starting new tech companies in this space extremely simple, extremely easy. Yeah.
Where do you see the dental space heading? Where, like in that same time? So obviously, your growth is going to be really dependent on the dental space
Hmm.
continuing to move in that direction. Where do
Hmm.
you see the dental space maneuvering towards, or moving towards, and what will that look like? What will that new world look like for the dental
Hmm.
space?
Yeah, I think one of the big challenges that we see with the dental space today, especially from the perspective of if you think about an entrepreneurial dentist that wants to go and start their own practice, right? Generally speaking, they're really good at their craft, which is practicing medicine, right, practicing dentistry.
Hmm.
But the process of going out there and starting your own location and like own practice is really a lot of bureaucratic administrative work, right? You got to go pitch a bank for a loan. You got to get a lawyer to figure out all of your like legal work and incorporation work and all those things, right? Then you got to worry about IT and then compliance, and then you got to hire your staff and you got to manage them, and then you got to worry about um, uh, random things like COVID and supply chain shortages, all those things, right? Over time, I think what will happen, and I think the NexHealth will be one of those companies to make this happen, which is that through technology, through better technology, right, there will be just a lot of automation where those administrative things go away as
Mm.
much as possible, right?
Yeah.
For example, I'll give you an example, right? Um, Given we're hooked into the database, let's say Dentrix or EagleSoft at a dental office, right? We know how much revenue that office makes, generally speaking, and we know what the month over month growth or year over year growth looks like, right? And generally speaking, if a doctor wanted to open another chair in the office, right, take some construction work, some spending and whatnot, right? Today they would probably go out there, and spend months with a bank negotiating rates and whatnot, and try to get a loan, right? Um, you shouldn't have to do that. We can automate that for you. Meaning, we know, I don't know, you make $100,000 last month, just a guess, and it's
Yeah.
increasing. I don't know, let's say like 0.5% month over month. That's stable. You have good collections as well. Hey, here's another $300,000, and pay us off of the future revenue you're going to get
Mm. So
every month.
similar
Let's say like
similar to
five
like
percent of their.
So
Hmm.
similar to like how the business world operates off of
Hmm.
Stripe, right? And it's like, hey, you
Hmm.
need a couple $100,000. Here you go. We'll just take it
Hmm.
out of payments of your receipts. And so,
Hmm.
because all that money that's coming in because you're helping them with the payment
Exactly.
processing. Yeah, so that's a great example. And
Hmm.
do you eh, how like what other areas do you see that happening in? And is there any other new technology that we're waiting on to come to dental to help with that?
Yeah, so I think that's one of my examples of like the administrative things you need to do to run an office, right? And there are the clinical sides, right? Like um, if you're a patient today, you go into an office and every office makes you do an X-ray. Like that's the first thing that they make you do, right, with the hygienist. And then if you look at the doctors, they look at the images and they're really looking at like with their naked eyes the shades of gray on that image, right? And making obviously usually accurate and guesses on the patient's and condition and whatnot, right? Um, that could be completely automated through image recognition and machine learning, right?
Yeah.
You run an AI system through it. It sees enough of these cases, and it can predict more accurately than a dentist actually, on like the condition of the patient, and then make recommendations as well. There's a great company called Overjet
Yeah.
that's being built out of Boston that's doing some of this, and there are many others out there that are doing similar things
Yep.
as well. So I think on the clinical side as well, through technology, and things will just get so much easier, which is why our whole thesis and our whole mission statement, right, is to build the underlying sort of like boring technology that's very much on the
That's
back.
needed. Yeah. Yeah, you can't build all that other stuff without the pipeline to get it from point A to point B, right? And so I
Exactly.
was
Yep.
I did a podcast yesterday with Jeremy Curl, and we were talking about, he's a doctor and they do funding for inside of the dental community. And we were talking about, he brought up an interesting term that I've never heard before. He said
Hmm.
DAO DSOs. And he said, that's like the next thing. And
Hmm.
there's, he was talking about different blockchain initiatives and just really future stuff. Right.
Hmm.
But to your point, which is all fascinating. I love that. And I think it's very interesting. But to
Hmm.
your point, if we don't have a firm foundation, we can't build the Eiffel Tower. You kind of have to keep your skyscrapers low because things aren't solid. So,
Yep.
when do you see that solidifying? And is there things that are going to have to happen to make that? Like, is something going to have to happen with the PMSs, or is it more of like the work that you're doing that's going to make that happen, or does other products have to come out to kind of bridge all of this? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think honestly, it's kind of interesting actually the example you gave, right? The way that I like to think about it actually is that imagine without imagine if there was no electricity, right? Like every house didn't have the wires and everything to receive electricity, right? You wouldn't have computers, you wouldn't have really any of the
Yeah.
technology that we use in the modern world today, right? So I think for dentistry and for healthcare in general, it's very comparable. Like there's no stable foundational infrastructure as basic as like moving data from point A to point B, or electricity. And there are companies out there talking about blockchain and whatnot, right? I mean, that's sure great, but not the problem right now. But anyway, so to answer your question, I think there will be many companies working on products like NexHealth. We're one of the few companies working on this, but I do think the work that we're doing and the amount of money that we raise and the talent that we have, and like how ferociously we're going after the problem, is really what will change this. And we're hoping that like most of the PMS companies, they do partner with us, and we're hoping that more of them do and cooperate with us to just open up the movement of data from point A to point B, so that it's easier for companies like Overjet, companies like Swell, and all these companies out there to build. Yeah.
Got it. And then do you think that we'll ever get to the place from a technology standpoint that a
Hmm.
patient holds their records and those can move like practice to practice, and I don't have to, like, just like you said, for the financial world, right? I don't have to do
Hmm.
anything to move my money
Yep.
from Bitcoin to Venmo
Hmm.
back to my bank account. I can do that
Yep.
right now. And there's limits and things
Yep.
like that, but it's my money and I can move it. Is
Hmm.
that what you see the health industry moving towards? And is it just dental that's facing this, or is it the whole health industry that kind of has to figure this out?
I think it's the whole health industry, and I do think like we'll get there, but maybe in like 5 years or so. I mean, like we think about it as dentistry, dermatology, optometry, whatever, right? But for a patient, it's their body, it's their health. It's
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
holistic thing, right? It's not like
Yeah.
these like disparate like things out there, right? Yeah. So I do think we'll reach a point where your health record becomes interoperable, meaning you can take it from place to place. And honestly, that's some of the work we're already doing today. So like one of the really cool features we have within our product right now is our forms product. New patient forms, right? And the way that it works today, and it's like super fascinating, which is that, for example, let's say you go to a dental office and you fill out your new patient paperwork through NexHealth, right? You type all of it in and you kind of fill all of it out, right? Next time you go to a dermatology office, and you have to fill out all your new patient paperwork again. And if they're already using NexHealth, that means all you have to do is verify your phone number and your
Oh,
email
that's so
address,
cool.
and
Yeah.
we'll pre-populate everything for you with your consent, of course, so that that for the next office, your process goes from like 10-15 minutes to just a couple of clicks, right? So we're already doing a version of this, but there's a lot more work that needs to be done to like fully make this work. But that's like a
Yeah.
small, I would say, sample of what I mean, when I say, moving data from point A to point B, and then building those tools, those infrastructure to then enable acceleration of just innovation in the space. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think as a patient myself, right? So I'm thinking as a
Mm-hmm.
patient myself, I've been to certain situations where it was really, really smooth, and then I've been to
Mm-hmm.
others where it's just like a
Yep.
horrible process, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who do you and I think that's good actually, because the
Mm-hmm.
people who are raising the bar, that's going to put the demand on the people who
Mm-hmm.
are kind of stuck behind. What part of healthcare is furthest along, do you think, in figuring this out and making it easy for the patient journey and getting that information tied together like you just described?
Yeah, I know we were just talking about how behind dentistry is, but compared to everything else, it's actually pretty far.
Right.
Like
That's
one of the
awesome.
reasons we started, yeah, one of the reasons we started focusing on dentistry is because we noticed uh, the people in this industry, in this space specifically, are much more entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
Like you go talk to a dentist, an average dentist, you'll notice that they're a lot more entrepreneurial than like any other specialty or vertical you can think of. So yeah, I mean that was like one of the main reasons we started focusing here, and I do think it's the the furthest along, but obviously compared to like other industries like finance and whatnot, so behind, right? So a lot
Yeah.
of work to be done still. Yep.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that dentists are more entrepreneurial than other industries inside the healthcare world?
I think it all goes back to incentives, right? I mean, if you, for example, go to medical school and I don't know, you do like primary care or cardiology, whatever it is, right? You have a huge safety net, which means, meaning like you can just go work at a hospital, right? Almost always. You'll get a job, well-paying job, and you'll have security and all those things, right? With dental school and dentistry specifically, up until very recently, I want to say 5 years ago, with the DSOs are kind of coming in and changing this. You kind of had no choice but to work
Go
at an
out and
independent
figure it out,
office.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, exactly. And I think in dental school, like they make you go through a business class for a reason too, right? Yeah, so like I think dentists just had no choice but to figure it out, and the only people that made it through the system are the entrepreneurial ones. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good answer. So,
Hmm.
if someone wanted to reach out to you guys and figure out, hey, I want to make my office smoother for my
Hmm.
patients and want to
Hmm.
want to make the whole patient journey better. How do they connect with you? How do they learn more about your product?
Yeah, I mean, you can go to our website, NexHealth, NexHealth.com, and click on see a demo and be able to see a demo. Or you can also, I think, just call us at 866-526-1382. We have a great team, very consultative, like yourself, actually. And yeah, they'll be happy to just point you in the right direction.
That's awesome. Yeah, if you're not using
Yep.
these services, definitely check out NexHealth. And now I really appreciate you coming on and sharing, and I appreciate what you're building too. It's great that
Yeah.
you're working on the problems that you're working on, because it's going to help everybody. And so I appreciate you guys forging the way and really putting in the heavy work, the hard work, for other people to be successful.
Yeah, of course. And thanks for having me, Gary.
Absolutely.